screen starts glowing and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hello and welcome to The Goods, a film podcast. Brian here. Is Dan here?
Hey, Brian. I am here.
Awesome. Well, listeners, we are here once again. This is episode 228, and we're here to talk about a movie, a spooky movie, because it's spooky season. We're about a week out from Halloween. This is one of those years where Halloween's on a Friday, pretty good night for a Halloween. And so we watched this time a film very different from my last pick. We talked the Coffin Joe franchise last time that I was at the helm. A very disturbing series of films, like experimentally graphic and exploitative and just very out there and extreme. And so I wanted to pick something that was kind of the opposite end of the spectrum of what a spooky movie can be. Because we watched from 1966, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. Kind of funny to think that this came out between the first two installments of Coffin Joe in 1964 and 1967.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Just a totally different vibe. This was a starring vehicle for Don Knotts, fresh off the Andy Griffith Show.
That's right. Do you think anybody watched the two Coffin Joe movies and then queued up, or no, queued the first Coffin Joe, then queued this one up and then the second one? Trying to imagine the tonal whiplash.
I feel like the overlap is a very narrow sliver of Venn diagram there.
Yeah.
Considering that Coffin Joe is coming out in Brazil. You know, there could have been some Brazilian cinephiles who checked out Ghost and Mr. Chicken in 1966. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. Probably fewer diehard Don Knotts fans checking out Coffin Joe in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem easier to go from one to the other than vice versa. Easier to downgrade than to upgrade in the intensity.
The other one I was considering for this week's slot was Ernest Scared Stupid. But perhaps that will wait another year.
Okay.
Ghost and Mr. Chicken is one I experienced very early on when I was like 5. It's in that vein of 60s comedies that I was watching early, like No Mobile. And the real reason this film has stuck with me as long as it has is because there's a scene in this film that really, really scared me when I was 5. So, Dan, I wanted to talk about what are some movie moments that you remember growing up that stuck with you because they were scary?
That's a really good question, Brian. So I wish I had better answers. Like I was racking my brain. I don't know if it was the fact that my parents kind of shielded me from scary stuff, more or less, or like I was kind of resilient from scares. I do remember being like very much impacted by sour mood. Like the mood of dread moved me more than like frights did. But I have two answers for you. So one is when I was very young. So I'm like, again, 5 is actually probably about right, but I don't really remember too much from when I was 5. Probably the 3, 4, 5, 6 range. Was in Sesame Street, the Count song. I don't know if it was the first time the Count was introduced or not, but there's a scene where the Count is singing in his castle to this sort of minor key, like Eastern European sounding song.
Right, it's like a klezmer tune.
Like invoking Transylvania, of course. And it's in like this gothic castle with like cobwebs and bats and spiders and stuff. I found it to make sure I was like not just hallucinating this scene on YouTube this week, and I watched like a minute of it, and I'm pretty sure it's the thing that scared me when I was a kid. And my mom told me that I used to go run and hide behind the couch and close my ears until the song was done, and then I would go back to watching the TV.
Well, I love that. That's a great clip. One of the early viral videos I remember laughing at just wholeheartedly, like to the point of tears, was an edit of that song where it bleeps out every time the count says count. So it sounds like he's perhaps saying fuck. And you got to listen to it because it's very, very funny. At least it was when I was a high school senior. I bleep slowly, slowly, slowly getting faster. Once I start a bleeping, it's very hard to stop. Faster, faster. It is so exciting. I could bleep forever. Bleep until I drop.
You know, one of the top comments on the video that I had was, I can never watch this the same since that other video. And I didn't think too much about it, but I'm sure that's what he was referring to.
When I'm alone, I bleep myself. But what was the second one?
So my second one is, and I can't remember if I brought this up when we talked about it, but I don't think that I did. It comes from Groundhog Day, actually. I know I've mentioned this guy on air before. He's a friend I had. I met him in kindergarten, and then we were like best pals through third grade when I moved. And then we more or less stayed in touch for a few years after that. And then by the time of high school, we kind of weren't seeing each other all that much. But sometime in late elementary or possibly early middle school, I slept over at his house, and I don't know if he put it on. I think we were just flipping through channels, and Groundhog Day came on. And we got about to the part where he is going through his despair and he starts killing himself over and over again. And this like upset me. I don't know if I had seen it before, but I definitely was like more engaged watching it that time if I even had seen it before. I don't even think we got to the end of the movie, or if we did, like I wasn't thinking about the end of the movie. I was just thinking about the part where he repeatedly tries to kill himself over and over again and succeeds, by the way. That's kind of what did it for me. And then you like get one shot where you kind of they like show his dead body, and that scene is jarring rewatching the movie because it's the only time we're not from his perspective. But Phil Connors, Bill Murray. But that scene again, it very much upset me, and we were sleeping on the couches in their TV room. So we just kind of turned everything off, went to sleep. And in the middle of the night, I woke up and I was having trouble sleeping because that was like caught in my brain. I don't know if I was like scared, maybe isn't the right word, but it was like disturbing me. And so I turned on TV. I guess my friend might not have been in the same room. If I had turned on the TV, I probably wouldn't have done that if he was sleeping there. But I turned on the TV. I was like, I just need to watch something light to like clear my head. And I found King of the Hill. But the episode of King of the Hill was like one where one of their friends dies, I think in an explosion. And they're like talking about mortality and fear of death and stuff. And it was like, no, I wanted to give me a light thing. And it did not soothe me. And so I had a non-restful evening that night.
Wow.
That's my other one.
Good examples. I definitely have instances where a movie disturbed me and upset me, and I remember it for that reason. I talked a little bit about that when we watched The Crowd. But I'm specifically thinking of like when you're very young, there's a scene in a movie that scares you, gives you nightmares. And I've got a couple examples of that. So Ghost of Mr. Chicken very much fits the bill, and we'll get to why in a minute here. But the first nightmare I can remember having that was triggered by something that I saw was the villain Hexadecimal in the TV show Reboot. Have you ever seen Reboot, Dan?
I don't think so. What's Reboot?
Okay. So Reboot was the first CGI TV show. It was this cartoon on, I should know the channel. I think it was Fox Kids, but I don't know for sure. But like a Saturday morning cartoon that, like Tron, takes place in a computer. I only vaguely remember it. So sorry to any like hardcore reboot fans out there listening to the podcast because this is going to sound inept. But I think the characters were like detectives or something in the world of the motherboard that they live on. They live in this computer, and so everything is like a computer term. Anyway, the villain, I don't know if she's a virus. I really should revisit, but she looks very scary. You know, like Harley Quinn, sexy villain type archetype, but her face is like a comedy tragedy mask, like a solid plastic white, because everything is, 1993 CGI. So, like, uncanny, like, what is that music video where they got to move refrigerators? Look at that. Look at that.
Devo?
No,
I don't know.
we gotta move those refrigerators. Da 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 da.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I want my MTV.
Money for nothing.
Yes.
Yes, that one. It's like that level of graphics. So she's got this face that is, it's only got like one solid expression, and then she'll like, theater style move her hand over her face, and then she'll have a different white theater mask. So like the expression can change, but only instantaneously. And it's really spooky. That scared me a lot. I definitely dropped some screen caps in our associated media thread on our Discord.
Yeah. You mentioned an early nightmare. It probably is not like my first quote unquote nightmare ever. I'm sure I had scary dreams, but I distinctly remember like the first time or a very early time I had a dream that was like so vivid and real and scary that I woke up and I was just terrified. It was like real to me. And I had to go tell my parents. And again, I think I was probably like 5 or 6 or 7 ish. Yeah, probably lower end of that. And I don't know why, like, this is one of the few things that like sticks in my brain really strongly from when I was a kid. But the nightmare was, and I'm going to describe it to you as I remember it and as I remember describing it to my dad. Like, my dad got up, like, went to the kitchen, he got me a glass of water, like, tell me about your dream. And remember, to me, it's like real. So, like, I'm not describing this with like any sense of like separation from like this is absurd. I was just describing like a thing that felt like I had just witnessed. We were walking outside and it started raining meteors that were actually Hot Wheels cars from the sky flying down. Hot Wheels, like the little metal cars, except they were giant and they were like, they were going to hit us and we were going to die if they hit us. Okay.
Wait, let me get this straight. It's small cars, but they're giant.
They're growing bigger. I don't know what's going on, Brian.
So essentially, they are cars.
I guess they're distinctly Hot Wheels. I remember that, but maybe I guess you're right. What is a car but a giant Hot Wheel? Riddle me that. Okay, so that's part one, and then this is okay. I'm just gonna say it. It started raining after that. It's been cleared from the skies. Survived it. Raining again. It's raining. The little plastic, like on if you get a 6 pack of cans, like plastic thing they say that the turtles can get their heads stuck around. It started raining those and like they were like sticking to me. And so I was like tripping, like gloopy, like it was like it was those things, but they were like a menace, like they were gonna subsume me, like quicksand or something like that. And I don't like, again, I was describing it as if it was real to my dad. And I remember my dad just not saying anything. And so it's like going through this. He's like, oh, well, have a sip of water and you can go back to bed. He's like, my son is a maniac. It's like having kids is so weird. You never know.
Well, I can see why Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is one of your favorite movies.
Oh, good call. Maybe it's like something in my brain is hardwired to fear things falling out of the sky.
I remember a phase in my life around when I was 5 and 6 where if something happened in a movie that scared me, I would turn the movie off. It was like my way of showing power over the movie, showing authority.
Nice, yeah.
I don't know. I really like seized onto that for a period of like part of a year. But I remember when I watched Muppet Treasure Island that came out in 1996. Like early on in the movie, Long John Silver is introducing his pirate crew, and he's going down the list of like Muppets on his crew, and they're all, various types of pirates. But some of the crew members are Old Tom, who's this like very old man, and Dead Tom, who's a skeleton. And when he says Dead Tom, I'm like, nope, I'm
I'm
done.
out.
Movie off. One other scene I wanted to shout out was from The Rescuers Down Under. Have you seen Rescuers Down Under?
Yes.
Okay. So in that movie, the first one had an albatross that they fly with, and in the second movie, whoever played the albatross did not come back. So they've got a different albatross now played by John Candy.
Mm-hmm.
And like while he's flying the mice this time, the albatross gets hurt and like throws his back out of whack. So then he's in Australia and he's got this pain in his back, and a mouse surgeon takes him in for an impromptu surgery
I remember the scene.
in
Yeah.
the back of like this abandoned military vehicle that's out in the Australian desert. And there's this extended like surgical torture scene in The Rescuers Down Under. And the threatening Mad Dr. Mouse is played by Bernard Fox, he played like a silly witch doctor on Bewitched. We're going to come back to Bewitched as we talk about the movie we're actually here to talk about. But then he also is in Titanic, and he like looks identical to how he looked in Bewitched, which I guess is the benefit of looking old even when you're young. But he looks like he could have walked off the set in 1967 and walked back on the set in 1997. It's like Dorian Gray almost. Anyway, he's the mouse who seems to be enjoying too much the idea that he's going to perform spine surgery on John Candy.
You've mentioned, I guess you were talking about the eye stuff, but like surgery seems to be a touchy subject for you. But that sort of bodily mutilation.
Yeah, what did you say last week? You feel like you're picking a scab. This is a scab that there's more here. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had surgery very often.
Mm.
You want to talk medical procedures, Dan? What's your most recent medical procedure?
Man, I have had very few medical procedures. I had an endoscopy twice when I was having bad acid reflux, which is where they put you under and they stick a tube down your esophagus to see if you have damage to your esophagus or your stomach.
Yep, I had that too. That was my most recent endoscopy, colonoscopy. But when I was a kid, I had my tonsils taken out.
Gotcha.
That's about it. But let's do what we came to do. Let's talk The Ghost and Mr. Chicken from 1966. Dan, what is your past exposure to Don Knotts?
Yeah, good question, Brian. I was sending you a couple of Don Knotts memories over Messenger today. So, my grandfather, my dad's dad, we always called him Big Daddy, which, like, now I think of as a pimp name, but he's like the least pimp person. He's like a farmer and a World War II veteran.
I would consider the least pimp person as an episode title.
Kind of applies to Don Knotts, too. Did you ever meet? You did meet my dad. How many times did you meet my dad, Brian?
A good handful of times, but I don't believe I ever met your grandfather.
Yeah, my grandfather passed away when I was in college, my freshman year of college. Anyways, the point is, my dad is a very gregarious, like warm person, and he could be social with anyone. Just a very, very kind and good person. Good maybe isn't the point of contrast I want to use here, but like a warm and easy to talk to person. Total contrast to my grandfather. Very severe personality, strict, known for being cantankerous and just tough, like rugged. He wasn't like a big buff guy, but like he just had like the sort of greatest generation toughness about him. Especially when I knew him when he was a little bit older. He had kind of like a thinner frame, very slight, like hunched posture. And I always thought he looked like Don Knotts. I would make the association between him and Don Knotts also because his favorite TV shows were The Andy Griffith Show, also Matlock, which is like the stereotypical World War II vet when they're in their 80s sitting and watching TV
Right.
show.
Old man show.
Exactly. But yeah, the Andy Griffith Show was like the classic. I think, it could have been Leave It to Beaver or something like that, but it's kind of like the wholesome family values, slightly Southern show. So I would watch that at his house, and then my dad had fond memories of watching it with his dad, and he kind of carried it on. Kind of similar space to Support Your Local Sheriff, which we talked about. My dad saying was his favorite movie, in part because my grandfather liked it and watched it a lot and celebrated it too. So I saw a decent amount of Andy Griffith Show, but I saw it when I was a lot younger. And so I don't remember too many specific episodes or scenes, but I still remember some of the faces and the actors and stuff. And so I don't know. I feel a lot of fondness for it, but it's kind of like the equivalent of like a childhood friend or like a cousin that you used to be close to but haven't seen in a long time, or like maybe watch like a home video. Similar experience to that. It's nostalgic, I guess, is what I mean.
Right.
The one clip from that show that my dad would say was always his favorite, and he DVR'd the episode like in the TiVo days, and he like just every now and again we would pull it up and press play and fast forward to the scene and watch the scene. It's like 4 minutes or something like that. I don't even remember the context in the episode or like what's going on in the episode, but Don Knotts, so his character name is Barney Fife, which just A+ character name. Absolutely love the name Barney Fife. And I think he's like one of the classic sitcom characters. Like if you were going to make a Hall of Fame of sitcom characters, Barney Fife would be in there, I think. In some ways, our parents' shows, Brian, when they were kids are still popular, like the big ones. Some of them, not all of them, but I'm thinking like Seinfeld, early Simpsons, still all that's still popular. I feel like our grandparents' shows have lost their cachet. Like, how many people do you know have watched significant Andy Griffith Show? I feel like that show doesn't get a lot of discourse online.
Perhaps not online, but it's definitely one of those perennial rerun shows that it's always on somewhere. It makes me think of in Crocodile Dundee. He comes out of the outback and he winds up in America, in Manhattan, I think. I could be wrong. I haven't watched Crocodile Dundee in a while, but he comes to the city in America, and he's kind of bonding with this woman who discovers him out in the jungle, and he's like with her in a hotel room, and he's looking at the TV, and she says, "Oh, have you ever seen TV before?" And he says, "Yes, once at my grandmother's house." And then he clicks the TV on, and I Love Lucy is on. And he clicks the TV off. He says, "Yep, that's what I saw." The idea that, these shows came out like at the beginnings of television and have just been in syndication ever since.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I didn't even get around to saying what the scene was that I was talking about. The scene is, so Barney Fife, Don Knotts' character, he has a textbook from when he was a kid. I think he says when he's in middle school. And he's like, "Oh, man, the things that I learned from this just really stuck with me. I'll never forget them." And Andy Griffith, one of the all-time great straight men in comedy, said, "Oh, yeah, well, let's flip this open." And so he goes, "Oh, the preamble to the Constitution." And Barney says, "Oh, I remember that one. Could never forget that." And then Andy Griffith says, "Well, let's see if you can recite it." And he's like, "All right." And he takes a deep breath. And what emerges is like, it's just, he had to carry this scene on his back. It's not written, you can't convey it in the written material. It's all about the performance. But the gist of it is he does not remember it at all. And he's like, "Well, just give me the first word and that'll get me going." And Andy Griffith says, "It's we." And he looks all skeptical. He's like, "We? You sure about that?" Like, I'm looking at it. And because Andy Griffith has to give him every word and every sound. And he's like, "Of the United," and he's pointing to the flag. And he's like, "The United flag? What are you talking about?" And it holds up. Just a great little Mini virtuoso by Don Knotts.
At one point, he's got his face in his hands. Like he's just in agony. He can't even think of a single word. But I was reading up on Don Knotts' career, and the Wikipedia article has a nice quote on the essence of who Barney Fife is. I just wanted to share this. It says, self-important, romantic, and nearly always wrong, Barney dreamed of the day he could use the one bullet that Andy had issued to him. Though he did fire his gun on a few occasions, he always fired his pistol accidentally while still in his holster or in the ceiling of the courthouse, at which point he would sadly hand his pistol to Andy. This is why Barney kept one very shiny bullet in his shirt pocket. In one episode, Andy gave Barney more bullets so that he would have a loaded gun to go after a bad guy that Barney unintentionally helped escape. While Barney was forever frustrated that Mayberry was too small for the delusional ideas he had of himself, viewers got the sense he couldn't have survived anywhere else.
What were the opening adjectives? Self-important, romantic, and almost always wrong.
That's right.
I don't know. Maybe that could describe me sometimes.
Maybe there's a little Barney in all of us. But he's the one who always insists on being by the book. Like, he's not going to cut people slack because he's the cop, but he's a dummy. Like, and he's a dweeb. He's this little guy, this beanpole, but he does have, like, the strong sense of right and wrong, and he's a good character.
Yeah.
And so he was pretty pivotal and central on the show as the sidekick for the first 5 seasons, but then wanted to seek other opportunities. Like ride the star power that he had built and make a go of it in motion pictures, be a movie star. And would he be able to jump from the small screen, which happens all the time these days. It's like now that we've got prestige television since circa 2010, it's like everybody does that. If you're a big TV person, you can be in movies, but that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, I think there's always been like can he make it in movies? It's like the movies is the higher level. I feel like what's actually changed is it's now a lot more common for movie stars to appear in TV. It used to be like TV was the lower art, but now every movie star pretty much will appear in like a prestige series, you know?
Yeah. So while he was still on Andy Griffith, he was the lead in a movie called The Incredible Mr. Limpet. Have you seen The Incredible Mr. Limpet?
Yes, this was another favorite of at least my dad's and possibly also my grandfather's. So it's Barney Fife, but doesn't he turn into a cartoon fish?
That's right. He wants to be a fish because he's not hacking it as a man. Go and be a fish and he'll have a perfect life. And he helps the American Navy win World War II by like finding U-boats. I think maybe we'll have to have Teddy back someday, talk Mr. Limpet, because that's definitely
Teddy Core.
Teddy Core, exactly. But he left Andy Griffith after 5 seasons, and Mr. Chicken was the first of a 5-picture deal he signed with Universal, which that's a crazy like contract to get. You're gonna star in 5 movies.
Hey, that was the Don Knotts magic, baby.
That's like the Adam Sandler Netflix deal.
Right.
And this was made with the help of a lot of people involved with Andy Griffith Show. It's like familiar character actor faces, but also some of the team behind the camera. And they just shot it on the Universal backlot. So I guess now finally is the time to talk about what's actually in the film. Ghost and Mr. Chicken. By the way, I think the title is a reference to the Ghost and Mrs. Muir, which I think I saw at one point, but I definitely don't remember it as distinctly as this movie. And so it's like, wow, they just made the whole title like a throwaway reference to another thing. One of the working titles was like Running Scared or something. And I don't know. I don't know what's better.
Well, my slight disappointment, I thought it was going to be like a more high concept duo or something like that. Like there was going to be a ghost and a guy named Mr. Chicken, and they were going to befriend each other or something like that.
Perhaps there would actually be a chicken.
Right. No, no chicken, but it's like chicken, like Marty McFly
Yeah.
kind of chicken.
This is described as a comedy horror mystery film. And I guess it's all of those things. I've got it on our slate as a comedy right now. But like the form of it, I would say, is mostly mystery. Like it definitely has the beats of a mystery.
It's kind of weird. It's like it feels like the centerpiece should be more of the movie because it's more just about this guy in this town and like the weird stuff, relationships that he has, and that he things that he goes through. Comedy would be the genre that I would use, but I guess structurally, like the driving narrative is what is going on in this incident that we will describe.
Right. Yeah. This movie has like one incredible 5 minute scene and like another pretty good 5 minute scene, and then a lot of stuff dealing with the aftermath of those interesting bits.
Right.
So Don Knotts plays a character named Luther Heggs. There's some good names in this movie, although the names don't get said very often.
Although Luther does get said. So if you read the production section, by the way, Wikipedia, I always like to just read Wikipedia just so I'm not like missing any like well-known facts about a movie before we talk about it. This one's got a like 5 paragraph production section in the Wikipedia. It was a lot more info on the making of it and the context of it than you sometimes get for these movies. But one thing it says is that Andy Griffith, part of his involvement was like kind of touching up the script and helping come up with the story. And he really liked running gags in movies. And so he kept wanting side characters. I think it's mostly just one character saying, "Attaboy, Luther." And you hear it like 10 times throughout the movie. So you do hear the name Luther a lot, is what I'm getting at.
Right. And he is a typesetter who works at the small town newspaper, like lining up the things that get printed onto the page. One of those jobs that nobody has anymore.
Yeah, it does not exist.
Probably the whole paper would not even exist at this point.
It definitely wouldn't be like 5 full-time employees for this little town newspaper.
It's the neighborhood gazette. But he aspires to a more prestigious role at the paper. Like his rival who's always dunking on him is a reporter who works there. And the leading lady of the film is this woman who's dating the reporter rival guy and who Don Knotts is pining after.
This woman, the character's name is Alma, which is you don't hear that too many. You don't meet too many Almas anymore. I guess you don't meet too many Luthers anymore either. One bit from the production section that made me laugh was this actress when they initially cast her and we're in pre-production. They said, "No, she's too sexy for the role. So we got to frump her up a little bit." So they had to put a brunette wig on her.
She was naturally blonde. And I mean, maybe there's something to that if you're getting paired with Don Knotts. But you know what I learned in the last week is that Alma is how you say soul in Portuguese, because it's in the title, "At midnight I'll take your soul."
Alma. So you know what? Given that Don Knotts is going after Alma, he could say, "At midnight I'll take your." Oh, the midnight's a key component of this too. "At midnight I'll take your Alma." There we go.
It's all connected because we'll make it fit. The movie kicks off with a drunk guy getting whacked on the head outside a creepy house, and he crumples in a heap, and somebody witnesses this and reports it as a murder, and it's the middle of the night, and so Don Knotts, the newspaper man of a type, is running around like trying to get the scoop on this murder story. But it turns out it's not a murder. The guy was just whacked on the head by his 1950s rolling pin wife.
Right. And so he passed out drunk on the ground, probably concussed, probably like suffering PTSD from World War II.
But Luther looks like a laughingstock, looks silly because he was all worked up about this murder that wasn't a murder. And so he's back in the newspaper basement, licking his wounds. that nobody takes him seriously. Everybody thinks he's a goober and doesn't really have his finger on the pulse of the community. But then this guy who is the newspaper janitor, I guess, this really is a job maker. He comes up and says, well, this might not have been a story, but that spooky house does have a newsworthy story behind it because 20 years ago, it was the site of the most notorious horrors our community has ever witnessed. The Simmons murder-suicide. And this piques Don Knotts' interest because allegedly what happened here was that the guy who owned the house, Mr. Simmons, murdered his wife, then ran up into the attic of the mansion and played a scary organ, and then leapt out of the window of the highest tower and killed himself.
What percentage of murderers subsequently, like the next thing they do is go and play a spooky organ?
Not enough, Dan. We got to bump those numbers up. This is kind of a morbid turn, but a couple years back in my neighborhood, there actually was a murder-suicide where a guy snapped and killed his family and then himself. So that's the closest I've been. It was like 3 houses down from our house. And so we could hear like the hostage negotiators and all the gunfire.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty wild. It was newsworthy.
Did you know them?
No. But it's the kind of thing where you walk by the house now. It's like, oh, that's the house where that happened. Luther decides, with the influence of this janitor, that he's going to write up a story on the Simmons place, the old Simmons place, and slip it into the paper instead of the assigned filler. You know, he's just supposed to be laying out the stories. He's not supposed to be writing the stories. But this succeeds in getting buzz and bringing attention back to the Simmons place.
So this was kind of confusing, and I actually worked for a newspaper, so I should probably understand this a little bit better. But I didn't quite get this. So it's like he kind of wrote the story, but also I guess it's just like a little anonymous feature type thing, like not with no byline. He even says at one point later, like, oh, a byline for like a real reporting gig. So what does that mean, filler, Brian? Can you explain this?
I mean, I can only assume something else was supposed to go in that space. So a fluff piece of some kind is what I would think, but you could also just think of it as like an ad, right? Like maybe somebody bought that space. Oh, run my ad. It probably wasn't that because then they'd be pissed if the ad didn't run.
Or like maybe, oh, an ad could go here if someone bought it.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, our story ran 2 inches short, so we have room for a 2-inch story.
Right. It's a little space on the page allocated for something else.
And then so I guess he has the power to just like write up his own thing and throw it in there.
I feel like I would abuse that power. Just always be slipping things in. But somebody who doesn't appreciate this new attention that's been placed on the house is the Simmons's heir. This like young, I think he's the nephew of the couple, or I think that's what it is. It could be grandson, a younger member of the Simmons family who has inherited this house, and he wants to develop the property, like tear down the house, build something else there. But this is what I found complicated. His banker's wife is like the leader of the spiritual circle in the town, spiritualist. So these are the folks, the ladies, the seance circle, who they want to commune with ghosts.
This whole thing is weird and complicated. Yeah, it's more complicated than it needs to be. So we don't even go right into the actual action. It's like this build up to it. Like, oh, he's got to write the filler, and then there's buzz around town, but also like there's this thing going on with the mansion. Yeah, and so this group, a seance circle or something like that, they hold a lot of sway in this town. I was like, I wouldn't buy that. Like these, I guess maybe it's the equivalent of like a true crime in the 2020s, like. Stereotypically that's like a housewife genre, you know.
No.
They get into it, but like being really into witches is not something that I think of like old housewives, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the wives of the prominent people in the town. And so kind of like Mrs. Banks in Mary Poppins. And the woman who's the head of it all and the wife of the banker, the actress's name is Retta Shaw. Character name is Halcyon Maxwell. And she also was one of the domestic servants in Mary Poppins. I think she's the cook or something. But she's got a distinctive face, a distinctive voice. She's the matronly type. Like big, broad arms, and like she can strong arm the kind of nebbish banker guy and says, "Don't do anything to this house because it's the site of paranormal events." The next thing then is that Luther is going to do a longer expose on the house. And hey, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the murder. There's no mention, I don't think, of what time of year it is, but it feels appropriate for this time of year to be watching it.
Yeah.
And so he's going to spend the night in the haunted house. And they've kind of gone over, one of the things is, oh, the organ plays at midnight. That's like what people hear that make them think that the house is haunted. But there's also other like prescribed events. There's various details of this story and what to expect if you spend the night in the haunted house. This is really the meat of the film. And it's not a whole lot of meat because it happens very early and it doesn't last all that long. But now we've got Don Knotts in the haunted house. He's going to spend the night and see if the horrific events happen as described. So he goes up to the house and he like falls down the coal chute or something. He goes into the creepy basement. That's how he accesses it. Kudos to the set designers. Like, this looks like a good spooky house.
Right. It's like when you imagine going to a haunted house in suburbia. It's like a very good version of that. Lots of cobwebs and creepy looking things. Little tricks of the eye going on.
Yeah, lots of cobwebs, old phonographs, and they really raided the prop closets. By the way, this house that's on the Universal backlot. So there are multiple spooky houses on the Universal backlot. I came ready to declare that this was the Psycho house. It's not. It's not the same house from Psycho, but the upper stories of the houses look almost identical. If you look at closer up pictures of what the lower stories look like, it's different, and it's just not. I can't make that claim. It's not the same house, but they are both on the Universal backlot, or at least they were in 1966. Also, apparently, the house literally next door to this Simmons house was the Munsters house.
It's crazy.
So they got a lot of use out of this real estate.
Iconic houses all over.
Yeah. And sure enough, the spooky stuff starts happening pretty soon. The first thing is there's like crazy laughter ringing through the house. And then a bookcase slides open and reveals a secret passageway. Don Knotts goes up the staircase and it takes him to what they call the organ loft. It's like they got this thing up in the attic, this pipe organ. And because it's a legit pipe organ, some of the pipes are like 20 feet tall. So they actually extend down below the organ. There's like a whole middle chamber of the tower where the pipes are going up and down, and then the keyboard is up at the very top. And he gets up there, and sure enough, the organ is like covered with blood. And then at midnight, it starts to play on its own. So what do you think of this scene, Dan?
So if you go to Letterboxd and you pull this movie up, the backdrop is Don Knotts making a hysterical face. One of the great reaction shot actors of the history of American cinema, I would say. Just making this great scared face at a cobweb covered organ. And so I was much anticipating this. And this sequence is sensational. You're absolutely right. The mood is there. It's the spooky mood. It made me think of Man, what's the name of the guy who did like the House on Haunted Hill or whatever it's called? Like
William
this
Castle.
Castle. That's right. It has like a light PG William Castle vibe to it. Like you wouldn't be surprised if a dangling skeleton popped out. I don't think that ends up happening, but that's like the kind of thing. It's kind of suspenseful too. It's like you're like, oh, what's gonna happen, you know? And yeah, I mean, like the organ starts playing itself, and I guess we're like supposed to leap to Ghost, but they're like player pianos are a thing. So my mind wasn't there. I was like, oh, that's why it's something that plays itself because it's like got a, I don't know, player piano situation. But I think we're supposed to take that it's haunted. At least that's what Barney Fife does.
Yeah, and it builds well. It's paced well, and like it gets progressively more intense. And so part of the story is that the way that the wife was killed is she was stabbed in the neck with garden shears. And so after this organ begins to play itself, it's like the peak of this is a ghost. A ghost. Don Knotts runs down the staircase, and actually there's two staircases that go up to this attic organ. So that complicated as well. It's like it seems like you'd only need the one. But there's the one that everybody knows about, and then there's this secret staircase. Anyway, he runs back down the stairs into the common room of the house, the sitting room where there would be a TV these days. But on the wall, the portrait of the wife has garden shears jammed in the neck of the painting, like real shears stabbed into the painting on the wall, and there's just blood gushing out of the painting. This was the bit that scared the shit out of me when I was 5. It's like I feel like that's an escalation. Is you got blood pouring out of this painting. Like this is actually it's close to actual violence. It's not a person, but you got somebody stabbed in the neck, even if it's just a depiction. But there's blood coming out of the painting.
Yeah, it's red liquid and like so first of all, now we're here. So this is it. This is the image. It's and it's like a gothic painting, so it's kind of creepy, you know? And there's a sharp blade stabbed into it and stuff running out. It's like 15 seconds of this movie, Brian. It's not like a something that it like spends a long time dwelling in. But I don't know. Again, maybe now I'm 37. I'm not 5 years old, but I was like, oh, for some reason there's paint coming out of that painting. Like I guess it looks kind of like blood, but this is not it did not like strike me as tremendously upsetting. But I guess that's the power of the childhood's psyche is like you take things and you make them bigger.
Right. It didn't land the same, but this was my reign of Hot Wheels cars.
Yeah.
If he doesn't totally faint, he comes close, but the next thing is a smash cut to him reporting what he saw. So bigger feature piece, he's got his byline. Now he's, edging out the rival reporter. He's drawing the attention of the lady love. It's kind of like Little Shop of Horrors. Because she's already dating that other dude. But now that the dorky guy's profile is rising, he's got more clout.
I want her to start singing Suddenly Barney. Again, this is still strange to me because why is the newspaper wanting to run this story of this guy they think is crazy telling the crazy things that they thought he saw? Like, I guess in 2025, this would be like a YouTube video. Like a guy, like, I went to the crazy haunted house and this is what I saw. Maybe that was where you had to get that kind of entertainment in the 60s.
Right. But now everybody's hyped. Like, everybody's talking about the house, everybody's thinking about the house, and Luther and the heir, the Simmons guy, doesn't like this. Because remember, he wants to tear the house down. So, a couple scenes here in the middle part are worth talking about. One is Luther gets to make a speech at a town picnic thing. I don't know if it's Founders Day or what, but he's the celebrity du jour. So they have him come be the Keystone speaker. I think this is the funniest scene in the film. I don't know.
Mhm.
Him making the speech and not being a good public speaker. What'd you think of this scene?
Yeah, that was very funny. I mean, it's kind of like the scene I was talking about with the preamble to the Constitution and the Andy Griffith Show, where it's just Don Knotts needs to sell the material, and he kind of punches above like the way that it's written to make it very funny. But he just delivers these lines very funny, and he's kind of like undercutting himself and doubling back on what he's saying and like saying the wrong thing. And I don't know, I did laugh, but I was just baffled right now. It's like, why is this town rallying around this known crazy guy saying that a house is haunted? And it's like, I don't like, what's the comparison? Like he won the lottery or something like that, or like he started a successful business in town. It's like the Chamber of Commerce is holding a celebration day for him. I was just trying to parse what. Oh yeah, and then like the ladies, the housewives who like their psychic stuff, have this big banner that's like psychic lovers of the occult marching through town, holding this big banner with that. I don't know. It felt like there was probably some satirical context that wasn't quite registering for me. Like it was trying to do a little bit of a play on the outrageousness and the way that little towns get really into things or something.
Yeah. One I was thinking of this time that I hadn't seen when I last watched Mr. Chicken was Inherit the Wind.
Yes, I was going to bring this up too.
A lot of Inherit the Wind parallels in this. Like the setup of the town is very similar, where the whole thing takes place in like the town square of this little tiny town. And then soon enough we end up in a courtroom, but we'll get there in just a moment. But in this speech scene, so he steps up there and just from the moment he's quaking like a leaf, like knees shaking and sweating, and he gets up to the podium and immediately all his notes blow away. Just a gust of wind and they go flying. And, yeah, so he's saying, well, let me clarify this, is one of the things he keeps saying. And you got the guy egging him on in the back of the, attaboy, Luther! But I've actually, when I have done public speaking, I've worked in pieces of the Don Knotts speech here, because he says, when I was asked to be guest speaker at this luncheon, I asked myself this: who are you, Luther Heggs, to be a guest speaker at this luncheon? I thought about my answer for a long time. So that's how I started out my commencement speech in college.
Oh wow,
I asked myself this. Yes.
that's pretty funny. Inherit the Wind, though, when I really started to think about it, we'll get there in a minute here.
Right, because the Simmons heir decides to take the paper to court for libel, I guess. They're making these outlandish claims, saying these impossible things are happening in the house. So he takes them to court, and it's the owner of the paper, so the boss, who is played by Dick Sargent. And Dick Sargent, Dan, played Darren on Bewitched, but he played him second. He took over after Dick York stopped playing Darren. Dick York, who was the defendant, Scopes, in Inherit the Wind.
Oh my gosh.
So this is our second Darren courtroom drama that we've covered.
All the webs tied together, and neither of them are Darren Shan.
No, maybe we'll gotta have Darren month.
Are there enough Darrens for there to be a good Darren month?
Well, we could do something with Bobby Darren.
Okay.
I don't know.
Or Darren Chris, has he been in movies?
There you go. We could do it.
Star Kid?
So we get this extended like courtroom drama now. Of all the genres, now it's a courtroom drama.
But at this point, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I thought we were going to be watching Don Knotts get spooked by a haunted house for 90 minutes, and like we got 5 minutes of that, and then like Now we're talking about that thing that happened, and now we're litigating that thing that happened.
I'm really curious to hear your final rating. There are some funny bits in the trial because they bring up Don Knotts' first grade teacher as like a negative character witness, which is pretty funny to think about that happening. It's like, what would your first grade teacher say about you?
I don't think she would remember me. Shout out Mrs. Embry.
I had Mrs. Murdoch. But the report that's given is, oh, Luther, not a hypochondriac. There's some other word for what he is, but he like exaggerates. He's like Chicken Little. He gets spun up about little things and makes mountains out of molehills.
I was baffled by something here. I confounded. So this is a case of libel, but doesn't libel suggest that it was done intentionally to defame, not necessarily that he's a Dumbo who accidentally got his facts wrong?
That's my understanding. Maybe, maybe we should have had Gavin's dad join us for this one. Is this legally sound? Because I also feel like it is usually like you have to be targeting a person,
Right.
not just saying stuff happened at a house. But I guess the claim that the heir is making is that this will make it harder for him to sell the house, or like he'll lose. He's what is it? He's damages. There's damages because he can't make money from selling the house or redeveloping the house because of these false claims.
Yeah, I guess that would be a civil suit. That I could see because the bar for civil suit is much lower than for criminal. So maybe that is what this is. I don't know. But still, it yeah, it's not libelous, I don't think, to say a spooky thing happened to me at a place. Oh, this guy, throw him in jail.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense it was a criminal proceeding, but maybe we got to watch it again. What it comes down to is, hey, you guys weren't there. I was there. So let's all go over to the spooky house tonight and see if the spooky stuff happens again. So any trial proceeding that leads to let's spend the night at a haunted house, I'm on board with. It's like, okay, now we're finally back. Like promise of the premise again. Veered away from it. Now we're back. Now I'll head over to the house, but like only the key players get to go in. There's a police guard but Alma gets to go because I guess the defendant can bring a date. He gets a +1. So they all go into the house. The boss and young Simmons and Luther and Alma, and they're looking around the house. Don Knotts kind of guiding them through, but the stuff doesn't happen. And if you listen to No Mobile, I hate it when the supernatural it was happening, and then you go to tell people, and then it's not happening.
Not your favorite plot device.
It's upsetting. It's like because we saw it, we the viewers saw it happen.
Yes, we know it's real. That's interesting. I watched this movie recently called it's the something in Cabin 10. I think the passenger in Cabin 10. Yeah, no, it's the woman in Cabin 10. Okay. So the premise of the woman in Cabin 10 is that a woman she's on a boat, a yacht cruise, and she sees a murder, or like peripherally sees and hears a murder in the cabin next door, and sees a body fall into the water. And it's an adaptation from a book, but the movie makes it clear that the thing happens, but the rest of it's written as if we don't know for sure whether or not it happened. So it was kind of weird. And yeah, like, I don't know. There are things that movies just make objective that other mediums like stories and stuff, the written word, like verbal oral storytelling, but like film makes things physical and real.
Right. Harder to do an unreliable narrator, harder to do like interiority.
Yeah.
Like you got to make choices of what are you actually going to show and how will you show it.
Right.
So Luther's a laughingstock again. He's embarrassed. People walk away disappointed, but Alma sticks around. She's going to keep investigating where this secret passage allegedly was. So she's poking around. next thing is Luther's hanging around outside and he hears the organ start to play. So he runs back to the Simmons house and heads up the like normal staircase to the attic, and he sees the janitor from the start of the movie is up there in the attic playing the organ. And the explanation, he does an exposition dump that he was the one who did the spooky stuff before. Basically, he's been the prime mover of the whole thing, and he has access and knowledge of the house because he was the gardener all those years ago at the house. And I guess it just kept a set of keys this whole time. So, Dan, as a first-time watcher, did you know that he was behind it all?
No, and I was confused who he was at first. I had to read the Wikipedia plot summary because now he doesn't look this. He's like wearing a different outfit. I hadn't pieced it all together. No, and I mean, many of the characters. There's too many characters because there's the rival reporter, and then there's the guy who's trying to buy the house, and then there's the banker, and then there's the janitor. But we see the janitor at the beginning, and then we don't see him again really throughout the rest of the movie, or at least not prominently.
Well, I'm glad that was your experience. That was my experience when I first watched it, is that this was like a twist and a reveal for me. But watching it this time, and it's probably been 10 years since the last time that I watched this movie, it was really obvious to me. Of course, once you know the twist, you know the twist, right? So I can't really say one way or the other, but to me it seemed really telegraphed this watch that, oh, this is the guy who at the start of the movie says, well, Luther, spooky stuff happens at that house, and he tells him all the specifics of it, like, oh, well, look out for the bookcase that opens, and make sure you notice the blood on the keyboard, and it all happens at midnight. And he's telling him all the details, and then he's telling him how to write the story in the first place. He's like, and you could slip it into your column.
That's a good point. I kind of took it as like a plot mover, like just like, oh, he's giving basic information to the viewer as well as the character, so we know what we're looking for. But I'm sure you're right, and I was just not engaging with this in the way that I if I had been applying my critical thinking, I'm sure I could have come to that conclusion as well.
No, it's good. A successful mystery will have the seeds there to point to the conclusion, but you want to be surprised. So this does that effectively, I think. But this watch, I thought, hey, of course it's that dude. And then the reason that the stuff didn't happen when everybody was there was the cop at the gate turned the janitor away. He's like, you're not an important person, go away. So he couldn't be behind the scenes like Wizard of Oz behind the curtain.
And I did think this was kind of clever because it's like, oh, that old janitor, he doesn't get to be a part of the big show. And then that kind of undercuts the whole thing, because if they had let him in, I was like, oh, you okay. Again, there may be like thin elements of satire going on here.
Mm-hmm. And then the next double whammy of the reveal is Kelsey, who is this janitor. He says, and I suspect that the real killer was not old man Simmons. It was young man Simmons, the heir, the guy who's trying to bulldoze the house. And it's kind of a convoluted explanation. It's like, while the murder was allegedly going down one way, young Simmons was actually sneaking around through the secret passages and killing people, and then had the alibi that he wasn't doing that because he said there was no secret staircase. And it's like, well, all right, why didn't you say this 20 years ago?
Right.
And the janitor says, well, the woman was killed with a gardening implement, and I'm the gardener, so I would have been implicated. It's like, well, that could still happen now. Like, this doesn't really make sense why you waited 20 years, but okay.
Yeah, no, it does not stand up to scrutiny.
And then the crazier thing is, at this very moment, young Simmons is there in the house, in the passageway, and he's captured Alma, and he's holding her hostage like a melodrama villain, like Snidely Whiplash. Yes, it was me! Ha ha ha, but you'll never tell. And it's like, okay, dude, you've gotten away with this for 20 years. A better plan would be just to not be there at the house and say,
What are you talking
this
about?
old gardener is crazy.
Yeah.
We settled this 20 years ago, and just let me sell the house that I own and then bulldoze it. And he would have been fine. But for these meddling kids,
Not an A+ criminal plan. Yeah, 20 years is a long time, man.
yeah,
They might be past the statute of limitations.
good point. Yeah, not a criminal mastermind. Now he's caught, and the payoff, one of the payoffs is Luther sneaks around behind him in the passageway while Kelsey and Simmons are monologuing at each other, and Don Knotts does a stupid little karate move. Because like 5 times in the movie, he's said that he's been studying karate, like by correspondence.
Exactly. That's what made me laugh. By mail, by correspondence, which obviously you can't learn karate by like reading about it. Very funny.
Yeah. So he like kind of lunges forward and bumps the guy, and he falls over, and they're able to apprehend young Simmons, the real murderer. Luther's a hero. He marries Alma.
Yeah, wedding out of nowhere. Like 45 seconds left in the movie. We've just rescued Alma. They've been on one date that we've seen, and it wasn't even a good date. It was like soup with another guy standing there. And then, oh, no, they're getting married. But I guess what, like a Shakespearean comedy is one where everybody ends up married. So that's what you got to have.
Right. And at the wedding, the organ plays itself. There's an organ playing itself, and Kelsey is not doing it.
This is the one I would have bet $100 that we were going to get or is there a ghost at the end? And sure enough.
You got it. Well done. And that's Ghost and Mr. Chicken, 1966, the first of 5 films. I actually haven't watched any of the other ones. The next one is about Don Knotts as an astronaut, which I would be curious to watch that.
Isn't there one where he makes like a love potion or something like that?
Let's see. I'm going to look at the list. All right. The 5 films were The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, The Reluctant Astronaut, The Shakiest Gun in the West, The Love God, ? Which is probably the one with the love potion, and How to Frame a Fig. Not sure what that's about.
How to Frame a Fig.
It is a comedy film about a bookkeeper's bungling assistant.
What if it wasn't a comedy film? What if it was like an intense
It's
drama?
not the comedy.
A cancer drama starring Don Knotts.
I actually just recently watched Pleasantville from the first time, from the 90s. And in that, he plays a television repairman who kind of warps Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon into the black and white sitcom.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Good effects because the modern people start bringing color to the black and white sitcom world, and it's happening piecemeal. So it's, it's kind of like the scene in Schindler's List where the one thing is in color, but it starts happening. It's like a disease that starts spreading, and people are turning to color, and it's pretty cool.
Did you read The Giver in elementary school, Brian?
I actually never read that one. I remember the cover of the book.
They did eventually make a movie out of it, and I've never seen it. I don't think it got very good reviews, but that was a book I really liked when I was a kid. It actually kind of blew my mind. It was like, you know how there's always the first one you read and it blows your mind. It's like a dystopia. It was the first dystopia I read. It was mind expanding, but the thing that really, really got me in that book that I did not see coming is, so you kind of meet this character living in this place you gather as a dystopia. And then one day he sees an apple and he says, there's something different about this apple. It's not lighter or darker. It just looks different. And then he goes and he meets someone who's like the old man who remembers the before times. And he says, oh, You have the talent. You can see color. And I was like, oh my gosh, this whole time, this whole world has been in black and white and we didn't know it. And this thing where he couldn't describe what was strange about it was him seeing color for the first time. Blew my mind.
Whoa. Yeah. Color is interesting. Sight. I mean, any sense. I think the word on Wikipedia is qualia. It's like something that you can notice using your sense. And you just have to trust that other people perceive it the same way, that stimulus is evoking the same mental response for others, and you can talk about it, and it's just kind of assumed that others experience it the same way, and at the same time, it's impossible to describe to someone who does not have that sense.
Right. Like I've heard synesthesia described this way, which is when your senses kind of overlap, and like the way that it's been best described to me is something evokes like an emotional or sensational feeling that normally wouldn't be evoked. I've actually sometimes wondered if my younger daughter has like very, very mild synesthesia. Like recently, she was learning her letters and she grouped the vowels and the consonants. And she said, these are the good ones that feel good, and these are the bad ones that feel bad. And I was like, vowels feel good and consonants feel bad. I don't get that. That's like a synesthetic type experience that I just don't understand.
Have you read about Booba and Kiki, Dan?
Uh, Remind me.
Okay, so that's a thought experiment. I don't know if it falls under linguistics or whereabouts, but it's one of those softer sciences for sure. But the idea that any culture, whatever language they speak, if you show them a curvy figure and a spiky figure and ask them which one is Kiki and which one is Booba, they will say, oh, well, the rounded squishy thing is Booba and the pointy thing is Kiki.
Interesting.
So I think it could possibly be tied to that consonants are the hard ones. They're the sharp ones,
Yeah,
whereas the vowels are the round ones.
maybe that's it.
Correct it. I can get my doctorate in sociology.
Did you know Colton majored in linguistics?
Really?
Yeah, we could ask him about it.
Yes, we've had the people clamoring for more Colton. So mostly Mitch these days is the voice of the Discord. Very passionate follower in Mitch, and so what Mitch wants, we will provide. So we got the works started to potentially bring some of these things about. So we want to listen to feedback, we want to reflect feedback, and the people want Colton, apparently.
And if you ever want to express your opinion about the goods, come find us on the goodsfilmpodcast.com. We'd love to hear you.
But that's the ghost, Mr. Chicken. And let's decide, Dan, before we pack things away, is it good?
Yeah, one last thing before we go into rating. This, if I understood correctly, was the second film directed by a TV director and producer named Alan Rafkin. So he was kind of dipping his toes into film, despite mainly being known as a TV guy. But the first film that he did was Ski Party, which was a spin-off of the Beach Party movies, which were directed by William Asher, who was another TV guy. I don't know if he ever did Andy Griffith, but he did I Love Lucy for sure. So that's like another connection deep into the goods is this guy previously made a spin-off of the Beach Party movies.
Nice. Don Knotts seems like one of those guys who could show up in a cameo role in one of the Beach Party films.
Great point. That wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think he ever did, but it would fit.
Yeah. But anyways, Is It Good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which would be a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating toward a good, which is an 8 out of 8. So I will go first. Is this movie good? This movie being the chicken, what's it called? The Ghost and Mr. Chicken? Good title, actually. I don't know. You just notice it at least.
That's right. You don't forget it.
Although I guess I just did. I had a pleasant time watching this throughout, even when I was kind of making fun of it. It's like, yeah, it's a family comedy. Like that's part of the experience. Is like it's not going to be the most logical film, particularly kind of like an old fashioned one, and it's got a very sitcom-y feel to it. I am going to give this a good-ish, a 4 out of 8. I was leaning towards 5, so I watched the movie and then I took a shower, and then I was just like thinking about the movie. And I was like, the interesting part is 5 minutes. It's like I enjoyed myself throughout, but like looking back on like what is good about this movie and like the stuff you get excited about, it really is just like kind of generic sitcom-y beats for 90% of its runtime. And then 10% of its runtime, it's the promise of the premise. It's Don Knotts reacting to a spooky house. Oh, Don Knotts got scared. He's going to do his I'm scared face. Oh, he's going to do a funny pratfall because the organ started playing, or he saw himself in a mirror next to some cobwebs, but thought it was a ghost for a second. All that stuff's good. And that's kind of what I was hoping this was going to be more of, because I really enjoyed that stuff, both from a production perspective and it's just kind of more distinct. Whereas, like, if it's just, hey, we're going to be more sitcom funny, like, a lot of this stuff you could ostensibly have in an episode of Andy Griffith. It's like, oh, a newspaper guy wrote a thing that wasn't true, and now they're arguing about it. Oh, he got brought to court for libel, even though he's just a nincompoop. Like, I don't know, that's not really movie worthy, but it's pleasant. It's fine. It's nice. It's good-ish, Brian. And I do like Don Knotts. I have some fondness for him. My fondness almost made me want to go into good, but I'm going to land on a 4 out of 8 for this. What about you, Brian?
I'm actually right where you're at. I regard the film positively. It's not a bad watch, but I kept comparing it to No Mobile that we talked not that long ago. And No Mobile just had more remarkable qualities about it. It had all the like animatronic animals and the special effects and the dual role of the protagonist and like the beautiful shots of San Francisco and the redwoods. And I think I only gave that a 5. So I think by necessity Ghost of Mr. Chicken slides back to 4 because it's just a smaller project. Seems just less ambitious overall. Like it has a charm, but I really wish there was more of the haunted house. The vibe I think they're going for is Luigi's Mansion. And the portion of the film that is that is just vanishingly small. I like what we get, and Don Knotts is funny. Like my other favorite bit is the speech at the picnic. Because if you give him the floor to do his shtick, it's usually reliably funny. So I do give it a 4 out of 8. Good-ish. I recommend it, but I guess primarily if you like Don Knotts, because you get Don Knotts.
Yeah, I think of him as maybe it's just my memories of my grandfather, but I think of him as like the quintessential greatest generation comedian. Kind of before we had entered the phase where you had to be ironic and cool. That's another thing I was thinking about, like the Mayberry, like the notion of a Mayberry. I don't know, it's so quaint nowadays, like just the wholesomeness of a small town. One thing I thought of when I was kind of just thinking about this show is I had this teacher who I really liked. She was a little bit older, and she said she didn't know if it was causal or correlational, but when The Simpsons got popular, middle schoolers and teens all of a sudden became much more preoccupied with being cool, much more confident in like talking back to their teachers and like, I don't know, like more rebellious. And I don't know, that's like maybe that was a sea change in American attitude or something. And this Don Knotts and the Ghost and Mr. Chicken and Mayberry, they all come from a time before then. It's an earlier era of American comedy.
That's funny. Makes me think of In Walk Hard, the moment that teenagers hear rock and roll for the first time, they stand up out of their seat and punch a priest.
Good beat.
Don Knotts won 5 Emmys for Andy Griffith. Andy Griffith won none.
Wow.
Which I think part of that comes down to, like, if you're a self-promoter, at least that's what I've read is, like, the factoid I see pop up on my algorithm all the time is about Kramer. That
Mhm.
Kramer, Michael Richards heard that he wasn't getting put forward in the first couple seasons of Seinfeld for Emmys, and then like his agent or somebody said, "Oh well, you have to do that. Like you have to put your name in for consideration." And then he did, and he won like 5 times in a row.
Wow. The one that really baffles me, I mean, it's like for whatever reason, the way that the Emmys has historically worked is the Emmys, the voting people decide they like a character, and then they vote that same person in. Like I think Julia Louis Dreyfus for Veep, not for Seinfeld, but for Veep, won it like 6 or 7 years in a row. Just like every single year, she won the best comedy actress Emmy. One that blows my mind is Steve Carell never won for The Office. And I don't know, like that to me is like the Mount Rushmore of TV comedy performances easily. And the fact that he never won, he did get nominated several times, but he never won.
Yeah, interesting how that works. Nobody on Better Call Saul ever got an Emmy, but the Vince Gilligan Ray Seahorn show is coming up. I'm not sure what it's going to be. Thrash just messaged me that a trailer is out, so got to check that out. My hope is that it's a gritty crime show with funny bits. That's my hope. It's like it doesn't have to be more Breaking Bad, but it has to be more of something that is like Breaking Bad. I don't know. It could be a genre thing. It could be more spacey. I don't know. I saw the title. I have not looked into it yet. I need to look into it more.
Yeah, the high concept shows are more popular these days, like Severance. And I feel like there was one or two others that got some buzz, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The little bit that I saw gave me the vibe that it could be more sci-fi, but I'm not really sure. I literally I saw the thumbnail for the video that he sent me, and that's it. So, and I don't know, there was like blue lighting in there, so I thought this looks spacey. But there we go. Spooky season marches on. What will we be watching next, Dan?
If we can swing it, I'm gonna have Gargus back on. Gargus has a I used the word high concept a minute ago, a high concept episode pitch for us to discuss a lost movie that has been partially recreated through stills. The name is escaping me. What's it called, Brian?
London After Midnight. So this, of course, being a horror aficionado, this is one that you hear talked about all the time as the great lost part of Lon Chaney Sr.'s filmography because it was marketed. There were pictures of the central character all over the place, and then just suddenly the movie is gone, but we know that it was there. So it's like an example of a film that is noted by its visible absence.
Interesting.
Like, there's plenty of lost films, and we'll talk about why, I'm sure. But this is one where it was like known and then gone.
Hmm. Play tying in with horror stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And if we can't do that next week, then I'll send Brian another horror movie and we'll watch something else spooktobery. But that is what is on the horizon for us, and we are getting right into Halloween time, Brian. A week from today is Halloween as
That's
of this
right.
recording.
I'm going to a pumpkin patch tomorrow. Sure, in a week from now, we'll have even more to talk about.
Alrighty. But this has been fun, Brian. Have a good afternoon.
You too, Dan. Good talking to you. Bye, listeners.